Nice to see you, John. I've been looking forward to this day for a few weeks or maybe a month or so.
I don't know if you can hear me, but thank you very much. God bless you. I love to see my good friend Daryl, and I was showing off camera. What he's preaching, I'm practicing. So here I am with the Doc of Detox products. Uh, Literally, well, I don't know if we're going to talk about today, but recently I had my little health scare, and Dr. Wolfe saved my life. I know all about cancer and all about apricot seeds and B17, but nobody in the world, as far as I'm concerned, knows more about the gut and our intestines than Dr. Daryl Wolfe, and he is a dear friend. And thank you, Judy, for introducing me that way. But you're also a dear friend. We met years ago, hopefully we're going to tell people about that today. But it's a crazy time. It's an amazing time. I have much faith that God wins. But we're having the battles, aren't we, Judy? Aren't we, Daryl? Aren't we having the battles? We're in the midst of the battles.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we're in the midst of waking up each layer of trauma because in fact, Daryl, when you approach uncomfortable topics like therapeutic vomiting, well, no, bulimia actually is vaccine injury when you shoot a kid with anything at in puberty, male or female, and they know they've been poisoned and they can't get it out. So the large intestine and everything you say. And I know we want to hear your testimony, John. We're preaching it today. Even how we come back together and you can't do anything but pray somebody reaches you on that day, and none of us will give up.
No, absolutely. And God put me through a trial recently that we may not have the time to explain today, but I just want to let people know that for my whole life, I've known about the medical industrial complex. My dad was part of it. And I always told people I'd never allow myself to be part of that, to be brought into it. And within hours of me I was going through throwing up, and I had an intestinal problem, a blockage in my intestine, which I know what it was. It wasn't what the doctors were telling me when I went to the hospital, but Dr. Daryl Wolfe literally walked me through it like a savior. Dr. Henry Ely literally walked me through it. Dr. Brian Artis was on the phone walking me through it. I had some of the best people around that were walking me through it, and I was told, here's the headline, that if I didn't do radical surgery to cut out half of my large intestine within 24 hours of showing up in the emergency room, I'd be dead in 10 days. Well, that was 40 days ago, 40 days and 40 nights ago, Judy, and I'm here. There's a whole lot more to the story. And a lot of people said, wait a minute, how did you get diagnosed with cancer if you've been, talking about B17 apricot seeds? I was on the phone with Dr. Del Wolfe. He said they should get malpractice. I was talking to our mutual friend, Tom Renz. He said, John, we could sue them for malpractice. This is a hospital full of 15 MDs telling me I had cancer, Judy, and all I had was an intestinal blockage. And I told them after I started talking to Dr. Wolfe and telling him what to do, I had 15 bowel movements in one day. And they ignored it. They just ignored it like I wasn't saying it. And how can you have intestinal cancer that's blocking if you're going to have 15 bowel movements in a day? So it's a longer story than just that, but
But it's such an important story because I had been right there with Michael Carlfeld right after we all got together back last November. So that's where we're showing you the God in all of us, in the love in all of it. It's, sometimes you like with our friend Rich, Dr. Buttar, or even my husband. Every day since I've been hunted like an animal to be killed since 2011, when I would not bow down, or back to 1983 when I would not bow down. It's like God knew we were going to stand tall. Every time I left, we say Auf Wiedersehen in German until I see you again,
yep.
because I never know. So every time I leave you, you can see the endocrine disrupt, and we're going to hit it, and then you just keep moving. And so that day I heard that piece of information. Everybody was on it, and every one of your friends answered, and most of us just dropped and prayed. So good to see you.
That's true. You were involved in that. Dr. Orley, who's on here, I see his name. I don't know if he's going to be coming on, has put together just so much miraculous stuff is happening. When we hear one of us goes down, and we just go, okay, maybe are they taking them out? That's what people I was having is Satan, getting hold of me. Like literally, I was going through it day to day, and I must apologize to a lot of the people that come to me with their problems. And I always say, why would you listen to the people in the MIC? Why would you ever listen to them? Well, because the system is so slanted. There's no emergency room with naturopaths. We don't have a system in the United States. If you have a broken arm, once they get you into the medical industrial complex, they don't want to let you go. They wanted to give me morphine. They stuck tubes down my nose into my stomach, which was a good thing. And Dr. Wolfe approved of that to get the backup bile out of me. But they did all this without my permission. They didn't ask me for permission to do anything, but I thankfully was able to stop them from doing morphine or any heavy duty drugs. But when I'm on the phone with Dr. Wolfe, they're wanting to give me medications so that I can get a colonoscopy. And prior to that, Judy, they told me that I wasn't eligible for colonoscopy because they would perforate my intestines because they were so bloated. But then all of a sudden, when I said I wasn't going to do surgery under any circumstances, then all of a sudden they found a doctor that could do the colonoscopy. And I was minutes away from, because I was minutes away from taking the medications to get that started for the colonoscopy, because I'm not an expert on colons. And thank God I said, I'm not doing it until I talked to Dr. Wolfe. And he said, I don't want to speak for him in this because it was a private conversation, but he told me some things that made me new. And I prayed that if I got that colonoscopy, they would use that opportunity to snip this or cut that, put me on a colostomy bag, cut out half my colon, just because they saw cancer in my intestine, which was not there. There's no, every test I've taken, every blood test I've taken, everything I've taken is all, my body's in perfect condition. I just had an intestinal blockage. And I believe, again, I know what it is, but I don't have absolute proof, but it wasn't cancer, but I had an intestinal blockage. And Dr. Wolfe held my hand, and I can show all the products so people know that I've used right of Doc of Detox. Anybody that thinks I don't practice what I preach, marriage, and it's behind him. I use this every day. I use the Man Up testosterone booster. I use the water circulator. I'm not even an expert at all this stuff, but I just trusted my good friend, Dr. Wolfe, and my good friend, Dr. Judy Mikovits. And I don't know if today we've talked about your breakthrough product. I talked to Dr. Ed Group 2 days ago on the it was the Global Wellness Forum. And amazing people, Judy, amazing miracles we're doing. And we were talking about you and talking about all the amazing things that are going off. And I'm introducing people. I'm not doing the old self-censoring. I'm introducing people from every walk of life, just so that all of us can get together and win this battle, because they are continually trying to take us out. You're muted, Judy.
Yeah, energetically, when we were in Miami, 5, 6 weeks ago, I'm like, get the oncogenics, we've got a line of cars, get that into them. But that formulation was too strong, and the amount of light it delivered, we had to back off some of the ingredients, because it's like, whoa, you could feel that energetically move. See, and that would have been exactly the wrong thing at the wrong time too. Just like cutting, and so our cells and our vasculature, our membranes are so weak because we're missing the terpenes and the other acidic components of hops. So what we put in to oncogenics was literally every spike protein. Our friend Dr. Christina Parks just now with the polyphenols. We had to stay in the terpenoids and things, but polyphenols were a key of what Jerry Norskog talked about in the original Anustat, delivering apigenin, she mentioned. So we had seen the same brain and the cancer with the same formulation. So when we formulated with Ed that day, it was because you were exactly right. What you just said was, I didn't get a choice. If you go under the knife and you're in a heart attack and you're literally dead from a blockage that is actually a blockage that is calcium, like a gallstone, like a kidney stone. Yes, that's a level of intense pain. It's not a fat. It's not that. We've been lied to about all of atherosclerotic, so that the probably the place nobody can go is say the word cannabis, and so we couldn't, oh, so you're the ones that made it marijuana, well, Cheech and Chong are living a lot better than us, and the music of Joni Mitchell and everybody else in our generation, only since they've been denied have they been getting ugly and angry in their tones instead of sweet and lovely. So, everything for the sound, from the sound processing, yes, it has to have that. The sonogram, you have to know what kind of blockage, and you have to sense it so that your immune system, your innate immune system, can sense. Well, we can't sense anymore because the spike proteins are lipoproteins. We don't have cell walls. LPS, our friend Ryan Cole, lipopolysaccharide drives toll, and the all the G proteins, sense of taste and smell, that Dr. Ely and Dr. Orley were talking about. This couldn't have been orchestrated by God better, so that all of us at the near the end, we start to show you how. So you're showing how living it, just like with John Hewlett and the download from God, when he was, the download from God, 154.
Well, I want to show this, Judy, because what you're saying, this download from God came into my hospital room when they were trying to tell me to cut my colon out. It says there's 154,000 estimated new cases of colorectal cancer. This was on Fox News, and it came on the screen while I was in my hospital room, and they said 1 in 5 are diagnosed under the age of 50 with colorectal cancer. Because, Judy, the guy that wanted to perform surgery on me had 6 colorectal surgeries that day at 200,000 a pop. I will talk to 15 different MDs, including, I have names. The gastroenterologist specialist never even met me, and he said he recommended I get surgery to cut half of the 10 feet of my large intestines. I don't even know if there is 10 feet of large intestine. Why so much? Well, we got to get all the polyps. We got to get all the other stuff. I would have been on a colostomy bag the rest of my life. And I'm John Richardson. I said to him a couple of times, you don't know who I am. And I wasn't saying that. I'm not saying that like I'm John Richardson. And these MDs are telling me they want to cut. I said, I would be a hypocrite to all the fans and everybody that's followed me if I said the first time opportunity they got to do, they want to do chemotherapy on me and radiation. And the doctors at some points were saying, we can't let you go, John. You'll be dead in 10 days. When you hear that, Judy, I don't care who you are, if you're an average person, you're going to fall for their lies. And so many poor people are going rush to the hospital today with some easily fixable nutritional deficiency, whatever it happens to be. I don't know what everybody's nutritional deficiency is, but easily fixable. Instead, I have my colon still. I don't have surgery. Like, I don't show my stomach. Look, there's no cuts on that stomach. There's no cuts. I don't have a colostomy bag. There's a little bit of extra fat there because I'm 60, but I'm going to get that in shape. I'm going to be in the best shape of my entire life. These guys try to take my life away without my permission just because I happen to be throwing up uncontrollably. And I know what that is. And Dr. Wolfe knew what the problem was. And he and I literally, I had Henry did a house call at my house. How many people love Judy Mikovits to be getting on the phone to call you, John, you need to be doing this stuff? How many people want Ed Group to be calling you? The average person wouldn't get that. We couldn't possibly, because there's not enough time in the day. Judy, you can't help everybody. So the system has to change. And that's the epiphany I came to. And I'm telling it to you and Dr. Wolfe for the first time. We must start developing clinics that are naturopathic clinics across the country where people can go for emergencies to be diagnosed properly. Use some allopathic diagnosis, but not these poisons and these cutting and these chemotherapy and these radiation. Look at people, palpate them. Look at what's going on. Is there hardness here? All of these 50 MDs, Judy, never laid a finger on me, but they all wanted to cut off half of my large intestines. I have the picture that they drew up on the wall in my hospital room to prove it.
And John, this is the perfect segue for, yeah, why are we making with Ed Group and with Brian Artis, I've said, and Rich Orley, why did we say we must have the oral IV line? Because no more injections, no more IVIG. You don't intravenously inject. You don't need to intravenously inject food or minerals called Myers cocktail that are poison. You'll shut down your niacin sensor. We're talking about sensors.
GMO. They talk to me. They're required to use GMO corn and these.
That's right. They're in all of it.
Yeah,
Every one of these.
You can't use organic glucose. You have to use GMO corn. That people don't realize that there's so much lying and cheating and death wished upon us that you go into these factories, these hospitals are factories. How would anybody survive it if they weren't John Richardson and I'm sorry, Ed Griffin? I spoke to him recently. Again, his story. He almost got injected with Run Death is Near 3 times when he went to the emergency room. He had traveled across country and he was low on water. He was dehydrated, but he was.
I know. I was there, honey.
I know.
I was there.
No, that's how we.
That's how God wins. It's so great. You can't even make this stuff up when you know. But each of us had to have that level of courage, and we had to make the discernment, the right call. What's God and what's my pride or what's my hope or what's my wish? I'm in the hospital with my David. The emergency room doc is down there who said, I'm an expensive divorce. I won't touch him. Do you give the authority? Because he had, an infection, right. Not a cancer. And so he could hear the bacterial infection in his left lung. Bacteria. He was breathing green snot. Bacteria, not COVID. So, and he's like, no, he's not going. He listened to me, his wife, And so I said, honey, I hear you. But let's let God decide, not your fear. I said, and Dr. Mike was standing in the room, and nobody else heard this. And I said, Dr. Mike, David, do you give him power of authority? He will control everything in that emergency room. For that 6 days he was here, God showed up. David came back to life. On the 4th or 5th day, I got a call from Mickey's place, and Mickey was on earlier, from Mickey saying, one of his guys said, Ed's on the way home and he's sick. And I'm like, Ed? G. Edward Griffin, home, T.O., Thousand Oaks. And I was sitting there with David and I couldn't leave. We just got him back to life. And so they would have jabbed everything into him. So I text down to Dr. Mike and I said, Dr. Mike, and I did the same thing. The same thing. Him, you, this. And it's like, I said, same thing you're doing for David. Get there now. And he's like, and he got there. And about 4 months later, I got a call from a very weak voiced Ed Griffin from an 805 number I didn't know. And I answered it and I waited and nobody answered the phone. And finally it said, Dr. Judy. And he said, this is G. Edward Griffin. And he said, I just want to thank you for saving my life. And that's.
Yep. No, you did. Absolutely. And I was, that's how you and I met. That's how what I got on the phone.
We did. So my David's life wasn't spared because all we said was thy will be done, the Lord. Yeah. My David died, but we needed G-Ed. He knew. He knew. He
all of us. And the truth is that's the epiphany I came to, is that the system where I was put into a medical industrial complex that just wants to turn me into a $200,000 payday. That's the entire thing. Actually, it's a $500,000 payday. the more research I've done, the choice of getting my colon removed and getting all the drugs and all the non-rejection drugs and going in every 3 months and all that kind of stuff. Not that I was ever going to do it, Judy, but I had to look at it. That choice would have shortened my life to maybe I could survive 5 or 10 years, maybe. But that would have shortened my life. Ed Griffin's 93. I want to be past Ed Griffin. I want to be 120. The system is such that we don't have an emergency system because we can't get a hold of Judy Mikovits every time. I can't get a hold of Ed Group every time. I can't get it. So that's my epiphany. That's what I'm telling people. And I'm telling Dr. I forgot to mention my good friend, Dr. John Murphy out of Tempe, Arizona, who's got Arizona Good Health, who's been talking with Dr. Wolfe and Dr. Henry Ely back and forth, talking about my case, all because they're friends. But the average person, Judy, doesn't have that opportunity. And that's horrible to me.
But you're giving them that opportunity, and you've done this, you've lived it by your behavior, and that's by standing in there strong with Simone Gold and Gold Care. So first, we're going to hear from Jim Gale in the next 3 minutes, and Jim Gale, I was just introduced to it because in order to bring our land back.
I'm sorry, but I'm just, it's like a family reunion. Out of commission for 2 months. I'm seeing Dr. Orley, who, thank you, Rich Orley, for putting that paper together. I love you. You're going to change the world. You're going to change lives. I was on a call. Just let me say this in the last 45 seconds. I have Jim Gale. I love you too. I was on a call with the Global Wellness Forum, and one of the guys on there, like, we hit it off, and he said there's $47 billion that the NIH has. It's available to all of us, all of the right-speaking people, all the people that we know, because I don't need to give you all the details right now, but the $47 billion the NIH has is available to the right side of God now. It's available. It might not be available in 4 or 5 years. It's available to everybody on this call, everybody, to do the research that all we have to do is get it to RFK, who knows all of us and knows what we do and respects all of us. And we're going to win. So I got my time is up. Love you all. This is my coming out party, and I'll see you all in the funny pages. God bless.
God bless, and thank you so much. And you just gave the perfect introduction to Jim Gale, so we won't take any more time so that we can hear how everybody beautifully worked together. And so yeah, this is fabulous because we've translated it real time, just like our founding fathers did in the 16, 17, and 1800s when they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and most importantly, their sacred honor. And nobody will ever let anybody down on their sacred honor. So, Jim Gale, good to see you again. Join us.
Oh, good to see you, Dr. Judy. And thank you, Dr. Judy and Dr. Wolfe and all of the other amazing people on this Braveheart call today. Because now's the time. We have been enslaved and deceived for so long. And because of people like you and the good people on this call, masses are waking up and saying, no frickin' more. And it's time, right? It's time. So here's what we're doing. I learned back 18 years ago what you've known for decades, Judy, and that is that we are controlled by wicked, evil people. And when I learned the depth of this, I decided about 5 years ago that I was not going to be a slave anymore. And I started making plans 18 years ago, but now we are finally in our completely off-grid family homestead. And for anybody out there who thinks they can't do this, that's a programmed BS. It's a belief system that was purposely programmed into your mind, because a slave, well, none are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free, right? So once we realize that we've been enslaved and we decide we don't want to be slaves any longer, that's when we have to start planting seeds of freedom. And 5 years ago, I was dead broke. And when I finally stepped into faith with all of my being and all of my spirit, then the divine entered my life in ways that cannot be written off to coincidence or anything other than there's something beautiful happening. And I speak to a lot of wonderful people around the world. And the one thing a lot of good people are missing is faith in something bigger than us as individuals, right? Faith in the human spirit and faith in, I grew up in Minnesota, so I call the creator God, right? Faith in God. If somebody from the other side of the world uses a different name for this creator, then fine. Let's not fight about it, right? Let's come together with a simple message. And that is to make yourself healthy again and create a surplus of energy and then use that energy to serve other people and to serve the land. And I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So we're here in our off-grid community, and just in this area, I have aloe and starfruit and bananas and 2 different types of avocados and sugarcane and papaya and 3 different types of cherries and sweet almonds and longans and mangoes and guava and tamarind and more bananas and sweet potatoes right here, right? This is a baby food forest. And now here's the fun part. This little system here takes less maintenance than a lawn. And it provides an exponential amount of food. And not just any food, but food that's grown with love and without poisons. So everything in this little system here is actually medicine, right? And you see this fence, this big wooden fence my partner put up? And this fence is going to be within 3 years green with dragon fruit and passion fruit and grapes and other vining plants that will create a food fence. Do you know anybody who's got a fence in your area? Of course you do. You might have a fence. Well, if you do, plant some grapevines or passion fruit vines or dragon fruit at the bottom of your fence. And then your fence becomes a trellis. And guess what? Now you've got a green, beautiful fence that produces food for generations to come. Right? What I'm describing here is similar to the picture that I get in my mind when I contemplate the Garden of Eden. This is it. And this is the only way that we are going to win the war, when we come together and organize effectively to be the stewards of our land and the servants of our communities and our families. And for those of you who think this is hard work, well, that's another BS. That's a belief system that's programmed. I love this. I have never had more fun and been more healthy and connected in my life. I am 55 as of Christmas Eve, and I feel like I'm in my 20s or 30s. And I mean, the relationship with my wife, with everything, it's just absolutely epic, because I'm stepping into who we truly are, who all of us truly are. I'm stepping into our origin. Our origin is that of health and wellness and abundance. And so, and please interrupt me anytime, Dr. Judy, if I trigger something.
Actually, you did trigger a lot. So let's see if I can translate what I heard. So I heard, and we could go ahead. I heard Maiha, make yourself healthy again. We heard that from a couple of diseases. So you become one part, you're a solar panel. You're driving the energy. You have surplus energy. So you're like a solar panel. You store up the light. Okay. So then we create as a network. I'm thinking, and I'll get to the end of it. We create a network of human solar panels that bounces the energy to the point where it becomes free energy, like building a cellular network. So instead of consumer cellular and everybody's orange, if everybody's maha, orange and blue, what does that turn into? Oh, purple. Oh, so purple, I mean, goes from, instead of consumer cellular, we're creator cellular. And then we go from the Garden of Eden to the promised land because Jesus is love, God is unconditional love, and we won. Is that more or less what you said?
That's 100% accurate, my friend. And the good news is together we have the solutions to everything out there. And, it was Dr. Martin Luther King who said, those who love peace must learn to organize as effectively as those who love war. Well, here's the good news. We don't have to organize nearly that effectively. Even if we organize 3% as effectively, we've got the truth, we've got God, nature, we've got all of this good stuff on our side, right? We just have to tweak our awareness a little bit. How do we change the world? Mass adoption through awareness, right? So we've got TV shows and feature films and an incredible influencer network. And my ask for everybody listening is to take a deep breath and breathe in your courage. Breathe in your faith and stand in that frequency, in that energy, and then take steps through that energy to serve. And this is the key. People think that I'm selfless. And the truth is, the most selfish thing that I can ever do is serve as many people as I possibly can and to serve the land. Why? Because people are good. People are reciprocal. And the more people we serve, the more they want to serve us back. Right? So we're creating a whole new way of thinking around this idea. I don't work ever anymore. I go out, well, that's not completely true. Once in a while I work. Right? But I used to work all the time. And now I work maybe 5% of the time. The rest of the time I'm playing and speaking with great people about how do we win this game? How do we catalyze a shift in awareness that leads to mass adoption of loving ourselves, our families, our friends, and the land again? I think your mic is muted.
I was just saying, yeah, how beautiful was that? Oh, mass adoption, because Israel, and I'm just thinking of Jacob again and Jesus Christ, God gave his only son, and we're the adopted brothers and sisters. We were grafted onto the roots in the trunk of the tree, and we're required to care for the soil. We were given dominion over the animals, and we failed because we failed. We poisoned the soil with Roundup, not a weed killer, and we called the things that remove the toxins weeds. We took the cannabinoids out of our soil, and they're not marijuana, and they're not a drug. It's a plant that pulls the metals and the toxins, the lead, out of the water supply in Flint, Michigan. Avery Jackson, who was on earlier in the day. So you see, I hear now that selfless is getting out for love, as Dr. Darrell. It's not love foo-foo, I love you. I love you enough to speak the truth in love. And
Yes.
everyone on this call today, through one of the worst 50 years of my life since I was 10 years old, love me enough on this call today to try to work through the layers of trauma with whatever was their expertise. And the most important thing was to listen to me in order to hear how they fit in the jigsaw puzzle. So those of us who don't know each other all of a sudden are sparked with joy and laughter. And you're right, I did a little heart rate variability monitor at Dr. Karlfeld's a few months ago, and I was so calm that I had the biological age of a 46-year-old. But interestingly, when I did it a year earlier, when I thought there was far less turmoil in my life and far more love, I had just a little bit of green left before I was all orange and red. That's what we
Wow.
just heard from Henry, the orange and the red. I had so little green on go. Spectral clustering, blue is calm, red is inflamed, and that's how we do our tests. That's how we do our everything that we do on light therapy. What is Raman spectroscopy? So when you know the physics, you know rigor mortis is when there's no oxygen. I watched people die. They were kept on, essentially preservatives and formaldehyde, and long before they were dead. Think about calcification of our brain. Stiff man's
Yeah.
disease is what they
Yeah.
call neuro AIDS or that G protein. So once we sit in a forum like this, we are totally scaring them to death because now we
Yes.
know people that might not have talked together before or even understood the language, the power and showing me that our love is the medicine and that
Yes.
God is love. And
Yeah.
that's our power in the medicine that I showed at the Truth Seekers in Miami with Charlie Ward, who showed me a different perspective. And Charlie Ward, it's his 65th birthday today. I missed it on Mickey earlier. Mickey's June 12th. But you see, when each
Yeah.
of us comes here and we recognize our purpose and we forgive ourselves and we tell our testimony, that's what this was about. I was saying it
Yeah.
sounded my funeral, the way they set it up, as if it was a wonderful life. And I walked in that room and I saw as if I wasn't there. Well, in 2014, I walked into Stanford and every name in medicine and everything like that, they looked holes through me. And the doctor who brought me there said, "We can leave if you want." They as if I wasn't there. It was as if I wasn't there. I was never once
Wow.
suicidal. I just realized what it meant to be truly isolated and having, wow, was everything I lived for nothing? And
Wow.
so
Yep.
the fear of that is Jerry Norskog sitting here. And he knew that time period, that, oh, when I was in that jail, I knew what I did wrong was um let's see, spit on the bear or poke the bear, and he came
Yeah.
out of hibernation in the explosion. When your immune system, it's called iris, immune reconstitution inflammatory syndrome. If you don't put a buffer on it and you desensitize everything at once, that's when you have that cardiac event. So when everything slows down too far, it's the opposite. It's deuterium, it's heavy water. So with just an extra neutron, you're not even measuring electrons. You're at the atomic level. And
Yeah.
that's where we are. We're at the eternal level, at the
And
atomic
speaking
level.
of
We're
that,
not, yes.
I'm so excited. I couldn't agree more. And when we reach into this new energy of faith and courage, something absolutely happens in the real world. So I declared freedom about 4 years ago, and we've built our whole community without asking the government for permission. We have very publicly said, you have failed. In fact, a government agent came here about 21 months ago, and he asked to see building permits for our family homestead. And I walked up to the guy and I recorded the conversation. I said, "My name's Jim Gale. What's your name?" He said, "Alexi." I said, "Alexi, how did you get permission to come on my land? Implied consent is not granted, and it's posted." And he said, "I'm sorry, the gate was open, so I came in." I said, "Well, before you leave, I'd like to show you something." So I walked him into the food forest and I said, "It is our duty to everything we love to be the stewards and the protectors of this land. And if we follow your agency, which is the government, if we follow your little white paper with your check marks there, we will kill our world as proven by every community that you've approved up and down this road here." So how could I do that? Do you have kids? I have kids. And I don't want to see the world die. he got tears in his eyes. And he said, I will never bother you again. And they have not been back. We do not pay property taxes. I will not pay taxes on my labor because I'm simply not a slave. And here's the thing. What I'm sharing with everybody is a strategy, because when we are of service and when we stand together in the truth, it is elevated above the government narrative. They're leaving me alone, knock on wood. And hey, if they come, que sera, sera. I am prepared for everything. I will give up my life in a second if it means a better world for anybody else. And that kind of energy, they don't want to mess with it, because here we are proving, we're proving the scenario. This is not a hypothetical solution. It is absolutely demonstratable. And so what we're doing is we're building soil. We're working with the local energy producing systems, the schools, the churches, the restaurants, the grocery stores. We're taking their waste material. We're mixing it with worm compost and mushroom compost and really good soil savior organic tea. And we're putting it into the land, and then we're sharing the surplus, and we're creating a local, self-reliant food supply chain. And to everybody listening, I feel the most important thing we could do right now is come together for sovereignty and community security and create local poison-free food supply, along with security. When we do those things in little groups, then if we do have a collapse, which we are kind of experiencing now, then what will happen is pockets will be the seeds of hope and the seeds of abundance. And the nature is exponential in its ability to create abundance. So we just keep plugging away and planting seeds.
Exactly. And that network, Jim, and that's why you're here today, because you've stayed faithful over these 5 years. So that Underground Railroad, to use that appropriately put, that's exactly why I said it, because of the Rosa Parks, is because of the people, we each have to play our part and build, and we had to trust. And that's why, the next person up, Dr. Dana Granberg Nil were for Gold Care, and Simone Gold and Gold Care, and when she stood on the steps, each of us were in our parallel universes, and we could see, but we had to stop the bleeding. We had to put the tourniquet on it. Some of us had to lose our lives, as we heard. Some of us had to be called like John Richardson, Judy, David Nolde, his name wasn't Mikovits. All they wanted to say was David Mikovits died of COVID. Nah. How do you like it, bitch? You wouldn't believe we couldn't even put an obituary in the newspaper. They kidnapped David Mikovits. Doesn't matter. His name was Nolde. And when the heroes of the faith step up. Now your time's up, but I'm leading into Dr. Dana because I see her back here. So this is why this is heroes turned healers, because we are going to continue to build that Underground Railroad. We did the hard work. It was a lot of fun. Sometimes we scratched our heads, but we loved each other enough. And to say, you know what, I made a mistake. Will you do this? And so when I knew Simone Gold, and she didn't know me, but because I was that bad person, it's okay. But she called one day about a year ago, and we were going to be with Clay Clark in North Carolina, in Selma, North Carolina, and she said, Judy, we each have 20 minutes or whatever, you, me, and Stella. I want to show this movie. What is a doctor? And I said, and she talked a little bit more, and I said, I'm going to have only one question. And she said, yeah, you want to see it first. And she had the courage, and she said, but the last 5 minutes, I'm really not sure of. And I said, no. And I watched it with my friend, Nancy Barna, whose husband is political Christian writer thing. So I'm watching it with Nancy Barna, and we both go to Godspeak Church, and Simone Gold's been on that stage, and in with Rob McCoy, and we all know that story. And I watched that film, and I said, "That's perfect. I'm in." And so Stella didn't want to do her time that way, and she has an important message in that community. So when I heard, like a day before the meeting, when I heard it wasn't gonna that we were sorry that we only had 20 minutes, I called Benoit and said, "Can you clip this?" I said, "No, let's do what you planned," because that's so critically important, that we appreciate what a doctor is, and we've got to completely flip, as we've heard throughout this, what healthcare is, and that's what Dr. Dana's here to talk to us about today.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Judy and Dr. Wolfe and everybody. Ciao for now.